Когда я прочитал наказ как бы деда своему сыну, я понял, почему мы победили в Великой Отечественной войне. Но победить такой народ с таким настроем невозможно. Мы абсолютно были непобедимы. И сейчас таким являемся. Чрезвычайно важная вещь. Вот только одна зарисовка из истории семьи. А таких семей у нас подавляющее большинство. Это очень важно. Да, извините, пожалуйста.
This is my video update from Athens, Greece on this Friday morning, September the 1st. Happy September, everybody. We made it through August. Let's hope we can make it through the month of September as well. I'm sure we will be okay. So let's talk about some news on this Friday morning. We are joined by all the cicadas here in Athens. They are chirping away. And let's start things off with more drone strikes towards Russia. A lot of drones were sent towards Russian territory. Even towards, from what I understand, there was even some activity towards the airfield of Pskov again. There was gunfire heard, and from what I understand, and looking at the video footage, some UAVs appeared to have been shot down. So once again, it looks like someone, the Ukraine military, NATO, maybe both working together, they sent drones towards this airfield, which is 30 kilometers from Estonia. But a lot of drones entered Russian territory throughout the Russian Federation. Once again, all those drones were shot down. From what I've read, no casualties. Look at all the graffiti. Look at all the graffiti. What a disaster. Yeah, all the drones were shot down, and once again, every day it seems like Ukraine is sending drones into Russian territory. Remember that the Russian Ministry of Defense, they said a few months ago that any more attacks on Russian territory would result in the Russian Federation taking out decision-making centers. We haven't really seen that type of retaliation occurring, but who knows? Maybe it's in the works. My hunch is that Russia is just playing defense right now. If I had to take a guess, I would say they're playing defense. They're going to absorb whatever blows are coming towards Russia, whether it's via drones, whether it's on the front lines, and they're just going to wait for this Ukraine offensive to peter out, and then they're going to hit back. If I had to take a guess, that would be my guess, but I don't know. I do not know. Either way, the drone strikes, they don't make any difference in the actual conflict. The New York Times has reported on the purpose of the drone strikes, the main purpose of the drone strikes. Yes, it is to create panic in Russia, but more importantly, the drone strikes are meant for domestic purposes in Ukraine. They're meant to keep the Ukrainian citizens invested in the conflict and believing that they can strike Russian territory and that they can win the war. That's the main purpose of the drone strikes. And keep in mind that an uptick in drone strikes is probably meant to keep the Ukrainian public believing that they can win the conflict, because we are going to have another Ukraine mobilization. So they want to keep everyone invested in Project Ukraine as they do a very big mobilization. I've heard somewhere of around 500,000 people are going to be mobilized, or they're going to try to mobilize upwards of 500,000 people. A Greek basketball legend right there. Now that's street art. That's junk. That's garbage. That is street art. And it's very upsetting that there were some people that graffitied the street art. Anyway, yeah. So, the uptick in drone strikes is also meant to keep the people in Ukraine believing that they can win the conflict, because there is going to be a big mobilization. And actually, there are reports from Ukraine that Ukrainian officials are actually coming out and saying that they're going to even extradite Ukrainian men living in the European Union. So any Ukrainian men that made their way to the EU, the Ukraine military is going to find you and bring you back to Ukraine and send you to the front lines. Ukraine needs men. They need men. That is not a good sign at all. Anyway, let's go back to the airfield in Russia, the Pskov airfield. I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I can't do it. I can't pronounce it. Anyway, let's talk about this airfield once again, because we have a denial from Estonia, an official statement from Estonia. They claim that they had nothing to do with the drone strike on this airfield. And at the same time that Estonia was issuing their denial, Elensky, he came out with a statement, and he said, I believe at a press conference, he said that he received a call from Ukraine intel and Ukraine military officials, and they said that they managed to hit a target in Russia 700 kilometers away using a UAV. Now, we know that the airbase was 700 kilometers from the Ukraine border, and Ukraine would have had to send that drone through Belarus, over Belarus, to hit the airbase if the drone did indeed leave from Ukraine. And so on the same day that Estonia issues a denial, saying they had nothing to do with it, you have the Elensky regime coming out and essentially, he claimed responsibility. Basically, without saying Ukraine did it. Check that out. Without saying Ukraine did it, he said Ukraine was behind the drone strikes. Now, I think what we have going on here is a bit of a cover-up, if you ask me, but who knows? Maybe Ukraine really did manage to send a drone 700 kilometers from Ukraine over Belarus to hit this airfield. Perhaps that's what happened, but I find it very interesting that you get the denial from Estonia, and then you get Elensky coming out and saying that Ukraine has hit some target in Russia that was 700 kilometers away from Ukraine using a UAV. And we know that the airfield is located 700 kilometers away from Ukraine. So there you have it. Yeah, and Russia knows who did this. Russia knows where this drone came from. And the fact that they're not really saying anything, to me, as I said in my video yesterday, I think that's all the proof you need that this most likely came from NATO, Estonia, NATO ships in the Baltic. And once again, Russia is just absorbing the blows. They're absorbing the punches. They're saying, let's not get into a situation where we have to escalate with NATO, and let's just not talk about what happened at the airfield, and let's wait for the counteroffensive to finish, and then we'll do what we need to do. That's my hunch as to what the Russian strategy is. So the Pentagon, they also came out, by the way, yesterday, and they said that they have nothing to do with the conflict in Ukraine. They are not a party to the war, which to me also signals that perhaps these drones were sent with the help of the Pentagon. Of course, they were sent with the help of the Pentagon and with NATO. And so you have all of these denials, and the Elensky regime kind of claiming credit. You have all of this happening on the same day, and so I think we know. We kind of know what happened. And then, of course, you have the Kremlin silence on this issue. Elensky did say when he was speaking to the press about the drone strike and what's going on with the conflict, he did say that there are going to be more drones heading into Russian territory. That is what Elensky said. He said that they're going to bring the war to Russia. So that was another statement that he made. Once again, all of this is for the Ukrainian people, or most of this is for the Ukrainian people. There's a mobilization that's going to take place. The Elensky regime, they have to keep the people of Ukraine invested in the conflict, and so Elensky has to come out and say that they're the ones that hit this airbase, and more attacks are coming, and Ukraine can win this conflict, and they can strike Russian territory and all of these things. You know, this will, if this keeps on going on, these drone strikes on Russian territory, this will affect Russia. I mean, we can't pretend that this is not going to affect Russian society. I mean, when I was in Russia, when I was in Moscow, this caused a couple of hours delay to my flight leaving out of Moscow, and so this is happening every day now. And you know, I think after another month or so, if the Kremlin doesn't do something about this, you know, people are going to start to, I imagine, people are going to start to be kind of fed up with this. They're gonna demand that the government does something, and the hardliners' voices are going to get stronger and stronger if this continues for like another month or two. And then, of course, you always have the fear. You always have the fear. Look at this, a Portugal hat, just kind of sitting here. So weird. You always have the fear that, you know, if they send 100 drones into Russian territory, eventually one of them is going to cause damage. And there's the fear that one of them causes damage not only to infrastructure, but, you know, you lose civilian lives. That's the fear. One of them actually does manage to hit, you know, a building in Moscow City, and the building is full of people when the drone hits. I mean, this is God. You know, I pray to God that doesn't happen, but, you know, this is, if this keeps on going for another month, a month and a half, it's a possibility. So, you know, the Russian government has to start to get a handle on this. That's what I think needs to take place. But once again, we'll see. We will see how all of this is handled. Senator Richard, I believe, Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut, he put out an op-ed the other day, and he said that Ukraine is the tip of the spear in fighting Russia, and he said that the conflict in Ukraine has been the absolute best investment that the United States has ever made on a military level. He said it's only costing the United States 3% of their defense budget GDP, and they have Ukraine fighting Russia. So the U.S. military doesn't have to fight Russia. They have Ukraine fighting Russia. And he said that the Ukraine military has degraded the Russian military by 50%. And it's weakened the Russian military towards the point of collapse. The Russian military is in tatters, I tell you. And they have to now use chips from washing machines and shovels in order to fight this conflict. Blumenthal didn't write that, but that was the general narrative. And so, he basically said what Nikki Haley has been saying and what Mitt Romney said the other day and Lindsey Graham, that, this is a great investment for the United States. That's his appeal to the American people. He's telling the American people, keep supporting the conflict in Ukraine because this is an awesome investment. I mean, this is like the best investment ever. For 3, 4, 5% of our military budget, we destroy 50% of the Russian military, and we don't even have to do any of the fighting. Ukraine does the fighting for us. That's the pitch, right? That's the pitch from Nikki Haley. That's the pitch from Mitt Romney. That's the pitch from Blumenthal, from Lindsey Graham. And it's a bunch of lies. It's a bunch of lies. The Russian military has not gotten weaker. It's gotten stronger. It's battle tested. It's battle ready. Russia's producing all kinds of weapons, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The Russian military factories are churning out all kinds of missiles and drones. They now have awesome drone technology and ammunition. This has been a huge lift for the Russian military industries. And this narrative about how this is a great investment for the United States, it's an admission that, contrary to what the Pentagon says over and over again, what they said yesterday, which is that they're not a party to the war, this is an admission that the U.S. is a party to the war. Every time Blumenthal or Haley or Graham, Romney, every time they say that Ukraine is fighting the war for us, it's the definition of a proxy army. I mean, that is the definition of a proxy war. The Ukraine military is fighting Russia on our behalf. Therefore, the United States is fighting a proxy war with Russia. They're using Ukraine as a proxy to fight Russia. I mean, that is the definition of a proxy army. And it's also pretty cynical, to be honest. It's the United States basically telling the Ukraine military and telling the people of Ukraine, you're going to fight Russia for us. You're going to fight the Russians and die on our behalf. That's basically what Romney and Graham and Blumenthal and Nikki Haley are telling the people of Ukraine. We're using you to fight Russia. And as far as the 3% defense budget thing, that's a lie. That is a lie. That's what we know they have spent on the conflict in Ukraine. That's what they've told us. Keep in mind, what they've spent on the conflict in Ukraine is unaudited, so we don't really know the exact amount. When they tell you, when the government tells you that they've spent 50 billion on something or 100 billion, quadruple that. That's like a rule of thumb. At a minimum, double it, but triple or quadruple it. So when they say they've spent 100 billion on Ukraine, they've spent 400 billion on Ukraine. And also keep in mind that what they've spent on Ukraine doesn't only cover the year and a half of the special military operation. They've been pouring money into Ukraine for 10, 15 years. I mean, this goes back a decade plus. So I would put the bill of Project Ukraine, I would put it at like 500 billion, maybe even $1 trillion. Who knows? Maybe that's a lot, $1 trillion, but I would say it's in the 500 billion mark. Do you know what good the U.S. could do for the people of America with 500 billion, with 200 billion, with 50 billion? Do you know how much good you could do for the people of the United States if you didn't send that money to the Elensky regime? Unaudited, unaccounted for, unaudited money. It doesn't sound like it's a good investment. How can you have an investment be good when it's unaudited? Have you ever heard of such a thing? An unaudited good investment? It doesn't make any sense, right? Doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, would you put money into a business? Would you invest money into a business and you don't get any type of financial statements or you don't get any type of audit as to how the business is going? And then they're going to come back and tell you as an investor, This is a good investment. You're going to be like, a good investment? How do I know? I don't know. Where are the books? How are you doing? What are your profits? What are your losses? What are your liabilities, your assets? How's the business doing? We can't tell you that because, we don't want to do an audit. We don't want to provide you with statements. It's, yeah, you can't call it a good investment because no one really knows. No one knows. That, and they don't even get into the actual costs of Project Ukraine. They don't tell you, Blumenthal, Haley. They don't tell you about the fact that Project Ukraine has led to a China-Russia alliance. They don't tell you that Project Ukraine has resulted in Saudi Arabia joining BRICS, that it's resulted in Iran joining BRICS, that it's resulted in the rise of BRICS, that Project Ukraine has led to the U.S. being demilitarized to a certain extent. Europe has definitely been demilitarized. Germany has been deindustrialized. France is losing Africa. And if France loses Africa, by extension, the U.S. is losing its position in Africa. The U.S. strategic petroleum reserves have been degraded, diminished. Inflation in Europe, in the United States. They don't tell you any of this. The U.S. dollar, the petrodollar, all of the effects that Project Ukraine has had on the U.S.'s unipolar world order. Project Ukraine has ended. It's ended the United States' unipolar world order. It's ended it. They don't tell you that. Blumenthal doesn't write about that. Mitt Romney doesn't talk about that. Nikki Haley doesn't talk about that. They keep the American people in the dark about the real costs of Project Ukraine. Anyway, I've been ranting about this for a bit too long. China isn't even going to the G20. Russia said they're not going to the G20. Xi Jinping, not China, Xi Jinping said he's not going to attend to the G20 in person. What does that tell you? It means that both Russia and China, they see the G20 as not worth their time. You want to know what's worth their time? Building a multipolar world order, BRICS. That's what's worth their time. So, the Project Ukraine has been a complete disaster. It's been a terrible investment for the U.S., a terrible, terrible investment. But, at least the military-industrial complex, at least they're making money from Project Ukraine. At least they're doing all right. They're doing better than all right with Project Ukraine. Yesterday, we had the UK MIC company, BAE Systems, I believe. They visited Elensky in Kiev, and they announced that they're going to open up an office in Kiev, and they're going to start producing weapons, UK weapons in Ukraine. Now, they don't know where the production facility is going to be located. They don't really have any plans to talk about just yet, but they said they've signed the deals and the contracts, and it's going to happen. They're going to start producing UK weapons in Ukraine. Germany said the same thing. Rheinmetall said they're going to open up a production plant in Ukraine. Sweden said they're going to start producing weapons in Ukraine. Who else? I think Norway, and I even think the Netherlands. Anyway, you have a whole bunch of defense contractors, Polish defense contractors. They're all going to open up shop in Ukraine. Ukraine is going to be a military production facility industry powerhouse, right? This is what we're hearing about every day. There's going to be a new MIC company that's going to be opening up a factory in Ukraine. Actually, Ukraine officials, they even came out and said that the drones that they're producing right now in Ukraine and the ammunition that they're about to produce, they're going to make it so that they can move from facility to facility in order to prevent Russia from destroying these factories. They're going to be secret factories, and they'll be able to just pick up and leave one region and go to another region, and it's just going to be like nothing happened. They'll continue to produce the ammunition or the drones. There's going to be no disruption. Does this sound like a manufacturing business? I mean, is this real? Is this serious? we're going to be producing ammunition here in Kiev, but it's a secret location in Kiev. But once the Russians destroy it, no problem. We'll be able to pick up everything and just move to the different factory located in Lvov, and then we can move from Lvov and go to a different region, and then we can go from that region to another region. No problem. It's manufacturing weapons it's mobile. It's a mobile business, right? No problem. No problem at all. It's like being a digital nomad, right? You can work from anywhere. You can manufacture ammunition from anywhere. So the Russians will never be able to destroy these factories. This is ridiculous. But what is going on here? What is going on here is very simple. It's very easy. There's going to be no weapons productions inside Ukraine. Not from Sweden, not from Germany, not from the UK, not from the US. They're not going to open up factories in Ukraine because they know that Russia will eventually destroy those factories. So what they're doing is very simple. They sign the contracts and they budget the money that's going to go to these MIC companies. And Ukraine doesn't have the money. Ukraine is broke. Ukraine has zero money. It has zero economy. But they sign the contracts and they tell BAE Systems, you're going to produce 10 widgets, right? And you're going to eventually you'll build a factory to produce 10 widgets, but we're going to sign a contract today and you want $100 for those 10 widgets. Well, Ukraine, we don't have $100, but we'll get the money from the United States and it'll come to us and then we'll pay it to you. And then you can take those $100 and give them back to the politicians and to the shareholders, and everyone's happy. That's what's going on here. Plain and simple. That's it. They're going to sign the contracts, put the contracts in place, budget the money, make the payments, which is just money. Ukraine is just paying BAE Systems with UK taxpayer money. That's it. It's essentially the UK taxpayer just paying BAE Systems. I mean, that's it. But they're going to use the excuse of building a factory in Ukraine and manufacturing weapons, so the UK citizen can believe that his taxpayer money, his or her taxpayer money, is actually going to fight the Russians in Ukraine. That's going to be the fantasy that they sell the UK taxpayers. It would be more honest if BAE Systems just told the UK taxpayer, look, give us money. I mean, that's a more honest transaction. But instead, they're going to take the UK taxpayer money, they're going to send it to Elensky. Elensky's going to send it to BAE Systems, and it's going to go to the BAE Systems executives and shareholders and politicians. That's it. That's all that is going on here. So political, let me see how I'm doing on time. I'm doing really good on time. Let's see. I'm always worried about time. Let's see. Politico, they had an article and they talked about how the Abrams tanks are ready. The U.S. Abrams tanks are ready to go. They're right now in Germany. 10 Abrams tanks are in Germany. They're performing the final maintenance on those tanks, and Ukraine's going to have 10 Abrams tanks to send to the front lines, and eventually Russia's going to destroy 10 Abrams tanks. And I imagine that one or two of those Abrams tanks will make its way to the Russian war museum that they've set up, where they have all of the Collective West hardware. So the museum in Moscow is probably setting up a place right now as we speak for the Abrams tank that they're gonna destroy and capture. But 31 tanks in total. That's what the U.S. is going to send to the Elensky regime. You got to keep this conflict going at least until the November 2024 elections. That's the goal of Sullivan and the Democrats and the DNC. So give them 31 Abrams tanks, and that'll buy us a couple more months. And we'll eventually make it to November 2024. The New York Times, they had an article on the German Leopard 1A5, the old German Leopard tanks. I talked about this in a video the other day, how Greece is being pressured to send 100 of their German Leopards to Ukraine, and then Greece is going to get 100 refurbished German Leopards from Switzerland, Italian German Leopards that are in Switzerland, and that's going to be the transaction. And the New York Times is talking about these 100 Leopards and how they're old tanks from the 1980s, but they'll do the trick, according to the New York Times. The New York Times says that these tanks are so old that Germany didn't even have Germans to train the Ukrainians as to how to operate these tanks. They had to find trainers from the Netherlands and take them out of retirement so that they can train the Ukrainians on these tanks. Here's the best line from the New York Times article. I love this line. The New York Times article says, and I quote, "Some of the trainers were civilians in their 50s or 60s who took a break from their day jobs to help." I love that line. Took a break from their day jobs to help. Can you imagine some guy in the Netherlands, like 50 or 60-year-old guy in the Netherlands, he's like comes home to his wife after a day's work, a hard day's work, and he says, "Honey, I can only stay home for about 30 minutes. You know, I gotta go over and help the Ukrainians train on the old Leopard tanks. I gotta take a break from my day job," or he's working his day job. You know, he's like working at his regular job, and he has his lunch break. And instead of going to have lunch, he has to go to the tank training grounds to help Ukraine train on these old Leopards. Is this is how you're going to fight this war? Really? Really? Is this how you fight a conflict with Russia? Oh boy, this is crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. And you know, the Ukraine leadership, they know it. They know that they're losing, and they're losing bad, and they're panicking, and they're lashing out. Yesterday, Mr. Kuleba, the Ukraine foreign minister, he was at like an EU foreign ministers meeting, and boy, did he lash out at the EU. At EU foreign ministers, he lashed out, and he was upset that there are various collective West officials who are questioning Ukraine's big super duper counteroffensive, and they're questioning the success of this counteroffensive. So Kuleba actually told the EU foreign ministers, the people that have been pouring in all of their money and weapons into Ukraine, he actually told them that if you don't believe in our counteroffensive, you pick up a gun and you go fight. You go to the front lines and fight. That's what he actually told them. In a way, he's kind of right. I mean, in a way, I kind of see where Kuleba's coming from. I mean, one side of me is like, don't bite the hand that feeds. The other part of me says, you know what, EU? You're using Ukraine. Yeah, you're using Ukraine as a proxy. And you're destroying Ukraine to fight Russia. This is not about Ukraine. It's about regime change in Russia. And you're using Ukraine to try and achieve some sort of regime change in Russia. So, yeah, I can see where Kuleba's coming from. You guys don't like the counteroffensive results? Pick up a gun and go fight. Borrell, grab a gun and go fight. Ursula, Baerbock, 360 degrees Baerbock. So, yeah, he was upset. And I can see where he's coming from, to be honest. And then you have Podolyak, Elensky's BFF Podolyak. He's upset at the collective West media. According to Podolyak, the collective West media has not been supportive enough. And he's upset at the fact that there are people in Ukraine, citizens in Ukraine, who are starting to read articles from Forbes and from CNN, articles which question the success of the big counteroffensive, and they're being affected by it. People in Ukraine who are reading CNN or Forbes are actually now starting to say, well, you know, it doesn't look like the counteroffensive is going well. So Podolyak, he's upset at the collective West media because their propaganda is not propaganda enough, right? That's what he's upset about. He's upset at the fact that they're actually reporting that the counteroffensive is not going so well. And Podolyak lashed out at his own citizens. He told his own citizens, his own Ukrainian citizens, that they need to stop believing the collective West media. And if they believe the collective West media, Podolyak said, he's like, if you believe what the collective West media is telling you, then get out of the country. That's what he said. Leave Ukraine. and go to the US, go to the UK, if you believe what the Telegraph or Forbes is telling you. So they're panicking. They are absolutely panicking. You know, if you go to my Google newsfeed, and I have a Google newsfeed because it gives me everything that the collective West is saying about Ukraine, right? The algorithm gives me all the articles from the collective West about Ukraine. If you go to my Google newsfeed, and if I believe my Google newsfeed, I mean, you know, if I actually believe what they were reporting, I would think that Elensky is living in Moscow, in the Kremlin, and he's taken over all of Russia. That's how bad the propaganda is. I mean, every day the articles are Ukraine is about to take over Melitopol. Ukraine is moving closer to Mariupol. Putin's government is collapsing. The Russian economy is collapsing. The Russian military is collapsing. It's all in tatters. Washing machines, shovels. I mean, every day, that's all you hear. The Ukraine military has destroyed 50 tanks. The Ukraine military destroyed 37 tanks. The Ukraine military destroyed 50 fighter jets every day. Maybe 50 to 60 articles talking about the incredible success of the Ukraine military. And Podolyak is upset at the level of propaganda from the collective West. Dude, how much more propaganda do you want from them? I mean, you know, they're trying to cover up the big counteroffensive failure. They're putting out articles saying that, you know, Ukraine military is getting closer to Mariupol because they gained like half a kilometer of land on the outskirts of Rabotinya. And according to the collective West media, Ukraine has broken through the first line of Russian defenses. What first line of Russian defenses? The Ukraine military has stopped trying to move south in Rabotinya. Now the plan is to go around, right? I was listening to Brian Berletic's video yesterday, and then I listened to Alexander's video, and they both came to the same conclusion, that the Ukraine military is trying to break through in Rabotinya. They can't. And so the new strategy is to just go around. You know, just go around. Let's flank. Let's go to the flanks. Is that a strategy? That's an admission of defeat. You know, I can't break through this tree. So, you know, I'll just, you know, go around. But, you know, I go around and there's another tree, right? I mean, you know, and then there's a fence right there. So I can't make it to the street, can I? Just can't do it. Even if I go around. That's the strategy. And the collective West media is actually saying that this is a sign of success. This shows that Ukraine is making progress and they're getting closer. Get this. They're not getting closer to Tokmak. That's not the title of their articles. They say they're getting closer to Melitopol, or they're getting closer to Mariupol. They're lying. So I don't know what Podolyak wants from the collective West media, honestly. I mean, I guess he wants articles saying that Elensky is sitting on his throne in the Kremlin. I guess that's the articles that they want. Anyway, let's do a clown world. We'll wrap this video up. And let's see here. Let's see, what clown worlds do I have? Okay, Business Insider. They have an article with the title, Elite Team of Ukrainian Snipers dubbed Devils and Angels is taking out top Russian commanders to demoralize troops. We work quietly. We are invisible. More snipers with fancy names. Now we have the Devils and Angels, the Ghost of Kiev, and I think we had like the Devil Snipers like 2 weeks ago. I forgot what they were called, but we had the Zaporozhye Avenger, the Goat of Kiev, Snake Island, Ghost of Kiev. Now we have a sniper unit which takes out Russian commanders, and it's called the Devils and Angels. I don't know. It sounds, you know, Devils and Angels, it sounds more like I don't even know. I don't know. It sounds like a nightclub, like a strip club or something, man. I don't know. The Devils and Angels. Oh, man, they need new script writers. They need new script writers. And we also have a new wonder weapon. And this wonder weapon is courtesy of the Czech Republic. And it is called the Three Fingers of Death. That is the new wonder weapon. The three fingers of death has arrived in Ukraine. A photo posted August 25th shows that the Czech Republic's upgraded Soviet 2K-12 M2 Kub M2 air defense vehicles, nicknamed the Three Fingers of Death, are now active on the ground in Ukraine, supplementing a small number of Ukrainian Kubs already claimed in service. So we have a new wonder weapon, the Three Fingers of Death. That's the new wonder weapon, courtesy of the Czech Republic. We have devils and angels. We have the Three Fingers of Death. One thing they are good at, you have to admit, one thing that the collective West is very good at is coming up with these names. Even though devils and angels, I think that's kind of lazy. They could do better than that. That's kind of lazy. They've already used devils and angels before. They have to come up with something new. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter. And go to the Duran shop. Use the code Good Day. Get 10% off. Sightseeing bus, double-decker sightseeing bus. And I think I'm going to go across the street there to Ramblas coffee shop and work on getting this video up. Take care, everybody.